All right, welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
So today we are going to be looking at something that's pretty vital in global health,
Absolutely.
and that is the market for ophthalmic drugs.
Yeah, IMED's
IMEDs, you got it.
big market, important market.
Huge market.
Definitely.
And to help us navigate this, we've got the Global Ophthalmic Drug Market Report 2025.
Yeah, a great report. Lots of good data in there.
Yeah, and I mean, what we really want to do is pull out, what are the key insights here?
Yeah.
What's the size of this market? Where is it going? What's driving it?
Totally. And I think what's important for us to remember is that we're not just looking at numbers.
Right.
We want to try to understand what the numbers are telling us.
Yeah, like why are these numbers moving this way?
Exactly.
What are the dynamics underneath the figures themselves?
Right. And then what does that mean for what might happen next?
Exactly. Yeah. So let's just jump right into it.
Yeah, let's do it.
And I mean, right off the bat, this report says the global ophthalmic drugs market is going to be like USD 59636.6 million in 2025.
Yeah, it's a big market, as we said, but I think the really interesting part is, the projection going forward.
Right, like what's going to happen?
Yeah, so by 2033, it's expected to hit USD 72457.25 million.
Whoa, okay, that's
big growth. That's a CAGR, compound annual growth rate, of 9.00%.
Yeah, that's not insignificant.
That's not just like steady growth, that's a real expansion.
Right, and so I mean, when we look at where this market kind of sits, where is it concentrated?
Yeah.
North America is kind of the big player right now, over 40%.
Yeah, they're dominant.
And they're sitting at like, what, USD 158.54.64 million in 2025.
Makes you wonder what makes them so dominant, right?
Right. Why is it so much bigger there than other places?
Yeah, I think part of it is, their spending on healthcare per person is higher than a lot of other regions.
Right.
And they also tend to, adopt new treatments quicker.
Yeah, more early adopter
than other places.
Yeah.
So their AGR until 2033 is projected at 7.2%.
Okay.
So still solid growth.
Yeah.
And when we look within North America, obviously the U.S. is the biggest player.
The 800-pound gorilla.
Exactly. Their market size in 2025 is USD 125.931 million.
Okay, so the lion's share.
Yeah, for sure. And a CAGR of 7.0%.
Yeah, very healthy.
Very healthy.
And then Canada and Mexico are also
they're in there.
In the mix as well. Canada's sitting at USD 1902.56 million in 2025.
Okay.
With an 8.0% CAGR. And then Mexico USD 1442.77 million.
Got it.
7.7% CAGR.
So yes, solid growth across the whole continent.
Yeah. The U.S. is obviously the big one, but it's happening all over.
Right. It's not just a U.S. story.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. And then, let's shift gears a little bit. Let's look at Europe.
Yeah.
Second biggest market share globally, over 30%.
Okay, so still a big player.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Their market size in 2025 is expected to be USD 11890.98 million.
Okay.
And what I think is interesting about Europe is the growth is a little more varied, across the different countries.
So different countries are kind of performing differently?
Yeah, exactly. But the overall picture is still good.
Yeah.
We're projecting a CAGR of 7.5% until 2033.
Okay, so healthy growth, but maybe not as uniform.
Exactly.
Okay. So we got the UK in there.
Yeah, they're a key player.
With a 2025 market of USD 1997.68 million.
Yep.
And a CAGR of 8.3%.
So they're doing pretty well.
Doing well, yeah. And then we've got Germany in the mix as well.
Yeah, definitely a market size of USD 2354.41 million.
Okay.
With a 7.7% CAGR.
Okay, and then, I mean, France, Italy, Russia.
They're all there.
Spain, even Luxembourg is mentioned.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's a
diverse market.
Yeah, like all over Europe, things are happening.
And I think that speaks to, the different healthcare systems in place.
Yeah, different adoption patterns, maybe?
Yeah, different factors at play.
So we've got North America, we've got Europe, both big players.
Right.
But where's the energy?
Yeah, where's the real growth?
Yeah, where's the future growth?
That's definitely the Asia-Pacific region.
Okay.
So they're sitting at about 23% of the global market share right now.
Okay.
With a size of USD 9116.42 million in 2025.
So not small by any means.
Not small, but their CAGR 11.0%. That's where it gets really interesting.
Okay, 11% of that is that's moving.
That is significant growth, and that's the highest of any region by a lot.
Yeah. So what's driving that? I mean, is it just population or is there something else going on?
It's a little bit of everything.
Okay.
Obviously population's part of it. Big populations in countries like China, India, that's going to have an impact.
Yeah, you can't ignore those numbers.
No, but it's also about increasing access to health care.
Okay.
Rising incomes mean people can afford better treatment.
Right, more disposable income.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And people are more aware of eye health issues now.
Yeah, more awareness, yeah.
So all of that together is really driving that growth.
And, I mean, in that region, who are the big players?
So China is the leader with a market size of USD 4112.39 million in 2025
Okay.
and a CAGR of 10.5%.
Yeah, that's good.
They're moving. Then you've got India right behind them, CAGR of 12.8%.
Whoa, higher.
Yeah, even higher. Market size in 2025, USD 1093.97 million.
Okay.
And then Japan, South Korea, Australia, they're all showing good growth as well.
Okay, so, I mean, Asia Pacific really,
Yeah,
like we said, the energy's
they're
there.
going to be a major force.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so what about Latin America and the Middle East and Africa?
Yeah, so Latin America has over 5% of the global market,
Okay.
with a size in 2025 of USD 1981.83 million
Okay.
and a CAGR of 8.4%.
Solid.
Yeah, Brazil and Argentina are the ones to watch there.
Okay.
Both good growth, and then in the Middle East and Africa, a bit smaller share right now,
Okay.
around 2%,
Right.
but a CAGR of 8.7%.
Okay, so
So that tells us that demand is increasing.
yeah, it's on the rise there too.
It is. So even though they're smaller now, those growth numbers suggest a growing need for eye care.
Yeah, makes sense. Okay, so we've kind of got the lay of the land in terms of like where this market sits
Yeah, the big picture.
globally, but let's zoom in a little bit now.
Sure.
What kinds of drugs are people actually using?
Yeah, what's in demand?
Yeah, what are we looking at?
So the report highlights anti-glaucoma drugs
Okay.
as the biggest share of the market right now.
Anti-glaucoma, so that's
That's for treating glaucoma,
right, which is
a leading cause of blindness.
yeah, a major eye problem.
Worldwide, so it makes sense that those drugs would be in high demand.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, are there any areas that are seeing really rapid expansion?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, where's the growth?
Anti-inflammatory drugs.
Exactly.
So they're being used to treat a whole range of conditions.
Okay, so these are more broad spectrum.
Yeah, exactly. Like uveitis, dry eye disease, inflammation after surgery.
So a lot of different uses.
Yeah, and as those conditions become more common, the demand for these anti-inflammatory drugs just keeps going up.
So while glaucoma is a big problem and those treatments are important,
Right.
anti-inflammatories are kind of the ones to watch.
Definitely. Yeah, keep an eye on that space.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, in terms of like specific conditions,
Yeah.
what are the ones that are like the biggest part of the market?
There right now it's retinal disorders,
Oh, wow.
like macular degeneration and things like that.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
Yeah, and those conditions, they often need like pretty serious interventions.
Okay.
Expensive treatments.
Yep.
Things like biologics and gene therapy,
And high-cost treatments.
which is why they make up such a big chunk of the market.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And on the other side of things, are there any conditions that are seeing like a really rapid increase in demand for treatment?
Definitely. Dry eye.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, think about it.
Yeah.
More screen time, pollution, aging population, all of that leads to more dry eye.
Right. More people are looking at screens all day long.
Exactly, and that means more people need treatment.
So it's like our digital lives are actually contributing to this.
Exactly. Yeah, it's a trend we're seeing across the board.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Okay, so, I mean, moving on from the conditions themselves, let's think about like the actual products.
Yeah, sure.
Are we talking like prescription drugs or over-the-counter stuff? What's the bigger part of the market?
So right now it's prescription drugs.
Okay.
They treat the more serious conditions, the ones that need a doctor's diagnosis.
Yeah, makes sense.
But there's a shift happening.
Yep.
Over-the-counter drugs, they're the fastest growing segment.
Okay, so over-the-counter is on the rise.
Absolutely. And that's because people are more aware of eye health issues.
Right.
And they want solutions they can get easily.
Yeah, they want to take care of themselves.
Exactly. For minor things like irritation, allergies.
Or dry eye, maybe?
Yeah, dry eye is a big one for over-the-counter treatments.
Right. Yeah, okay, so people are getting more proactive.
They are. It's a trend we're seeing across healthcare.
Yeah, it makes sense. Okay, so how are these medications actually being given to people?
Yeah, like what form are they in?
Yeah, what's the most common way?
So right now it's eye drops.
Okay, the classic.
The classic, they're convenient, patients can use them easily.
Yeah, easy to administer.
And they deliver the medication right where it's needed.
Right to the eye.
Yep, so they work for a lot of different conditions.
Okay, but is there anything else that's like gaining popularity?
Yeah, we're seeing gels becoming more popular.
Gel's okay.
Yeah, they have some advantages over drops.
Okay.
They stay on the eye longer.
Oh, so they don't just like run out.
Exactly. Better absorption, potentially less frequent application.
So it's more like a time release kind of thing?
Kind of, yeah. And that can help with patient adherence.
Oh, so people actually use it as directed.
Exactly.
Interesting.
So gels are definitely one to watch.
Yeah, okay. So then the last thing is, How are these drugs actually getting to the patients?
Yeah, like how is it all distributed?
Yeah, what's the main channel?
So retail pharmacies are still the big one.
Okay, the corner drugstore.
Exactly. Easy access, they handle both prescriptions and over-the-counter stuff.
Yeah, one-stop shop.
But again, there's a change happening.
Yeah.
Online pharmacies are growing super fast.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, it's convenient.
Yeah, order from home.
You got it. Maybe some cost savings, discreet delivery. It just makes sense for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's the Amazon effect.
Exactly. It's happening everywhere.
Everything's moving online.
It is.
Okay, so now that we've got a good sense of like the size, the growth, the different segments.
Yeah, the nuts and bolts.
Let's talk about what's actually driving all of this.
Yeah, what's moving the market?
Yeah, what are the big factors?
So the report points to a few things.
Okay.
First off, advances in drug formulations and delivery systems.
Makes sense.
Scientists are always coming up with better treatments.
Yeah, better ways to get the medicine where it needs to go.
Exactly, like the gels we talked about or long-lasting formulations.
Right, new technologies.
Yeah, and that's a huge driver because it means better outcomes for patients.
Right, better treatments, better results.
Absolutely.
Okay, so that's one big one. What else is driving this market?
I think another big factor is just awareness. People are more aware of eye health these days.
Yeah, they understand that it's important.
And they know that early detection is key.
Right, catch it early.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So they're more likely to see a doctor, get treatment, and stick with their medications.
Right, so it's not just about the drugs themselves, it's about people understanding that they need them.
Absolutely. It's a whole shift in mindset.
Okay, and what's the third big driver here?
This one's a bit more straightforward.
Okay.
The global population is aging.
Right, people are living longer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as we get older, we're more prone to vision problems.
Yeah, age-related stuff.
Things like AMD, cataracts, glaucoma, all more common in older people.
So that naturally leads to a bigger need for these drugs.
It does. It's simple math, really. More older people equals more eye problems.
So it's kind of a perfect storm.
Yeah, it is. You've got the science advancing, people are more aware, and the demographics are shifting. It's all pushing the market forward.
Yeah, it's all coming together. Okay, so we've talked about what's driving the market, but I mean, every market has challenges.
Right.
What are some of the things that might be holding this market back?
Yeah, so one of the biggest challenges is cost.
Okay.
These treatments can be expensive, especially the newer ones.
Yeah, the cutting edge stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that can limit access for some people.
Right. Not everyone can afford the best treatments.
Unfortunately not, and that's a big problem.
Got a big barrier.
It is.
Okay, so cost is a big one. What else is holding things back?
Another big factor is regulation.
Okay.
Getting new drugs approved can take a long time.
Yeah, all the trials and the testing.
Yeah, it's a rigorous process, which is good. We want to make sure these drugs are safe and effective.
Yeah, of course.
But it does mean that it can take a while for new treatments to reach patients.
So it's kind of a trade-off.
It is safety versus speed.
Yeah, you got to find the right balance.
Exactly.
Okay, so we've got cost, we've got regulation. Anything else that's kind of a big trend that we should be aware of?
Yeah, there are a couple of big trends that are really shaping the future of this market.
Okay.
The first one is biologics and gene therapies.
Oh, yeah, those are the cutting-edge treatments.
They are.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about those.
Yeah, and they have the potential to treat conditions that were really difficult to treat before.
Really, like stuff that was basically untreatable.
Yeah, pretty much. And we're seeing more and more investment in this area.
So this is like the future of ophthalmology.
It's definitely a big part of the future.
Yeah, wow, that's exciting. And what's the other big trend?
This one's all about how the drugs are delivered.
Okay,
Minimally invasive drug delivery systems.
so less needles and stuff.
Exactly.
Yeah.
People want treatments that are easier and less invasive.
And doctors too, probably.
And doctors, everyone benefits.
Yeah.
So we're seeing new things like sustained release implants and new topical formulations.
So basically making it easier to get the drugs into the eye.
Exactly. And that's a trend that's only going to get bigger.
Okay, so really interesting stuff happening there. All right, so last but not least, let's talk about the companies involved.
Yeah, the competitive landscape.
Yeah, who are the big players? What are they up to?
So it's a pretty competitive market, lots of big pharma companies and biotech firms.
Yep, makes sense.
And they're all investing heavily in research and development,
Okay.
especially for AMD, glaucoma, dry eye, the big ones.
Right, those are the big markets.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're doing all kinds of things, mergers, acquisitions, collaborations. They're really trying to stay ahead of the curve.
Yeah, so it's a really active market.
It is lots of innovation, lots of competition.
Makes sense. And the report actually mentions a couple of specific examples.
Oh, yeah, it does.
What are they?
So there's Bayer AG.
Okay.
They submitted a regulatory application in the EU back in February of 2023.
Okay.
For a higher dose formulation of aflibercept, it's 8 milligrams,
Okay.
and that's for treating 2 retinal diseases.
Oh, so this is like an improvement on an existing drug.
Yeah, exactly. They're trying to make it even better.
Okay.
And then there's Viatris Inc.
Okay.
They launched Rizomati in the U.S. in April 2024.
What does that do?
That treats something called pharmacologically induced mydriasis.
Okay.
It's basically when your pupils get dilated because of other medications.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that was a thing.
It is, and it can be a problem.
Okay, so this drug helps with that.
It helps to reverse the dilation.
So it's kind of a niche treatment.
It is, but it shows that companies are looking at all kinds of areas within ophthalmology.
Right, so even the smaller markets are getting attention.
Exactly.
That's really interesting. Okay, so to sum it all up,
Yeah, let's tie it all together.
we've got a really dynamic market here.
We do.
Big market growing fast.
And it's only going to get bigger.
Yeah, Asia Pacific is the one to watch.
Just
Age-related eye conditions are on the rise.
right.
Dry eye is a growing problem.
Huge problem.
And we've got all this amazing new technology coming out.
New drugs, new delivery systems. It's a really exciting time for ophthalmology.
Yeah, and it's not just about the technology. It's about people being more aware of eye health.
Absolutely. Prevention is key.
Okay, so, I mean, given all that, right, we're spending more and more time looking at screens.
Yeah.
People are living longer. Everyone's worried about their eye health.
Rightfully so.
Like, where do we go from here? What's next?
Yeah, that's the big question.
Yeah, how are dry eye treatments going to evolve?
Yeah, what about preventative care? Are we going to see something completely new and unexpected in the next decade?
Yeah, something we haven't even thought of yet.
That's what's really exciting.
Yeah, it makes you think.
It does. There's so much potential in this space.
Yeah, this has been a really fascinating deep dive. I mean, this report was packed with information.
It was a great report, lots to unpack.
Yeah, but I think we got to the heart of it.
I think so too. We got a good overview of the market.
Yeah, and some food for thought.
Definitely something to think about as we move forward.
Absolutely. All right. Well, thanks for joining me on this deep dive.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been great.
And we'll see you next time.
See you later.